Hello everybody, my name is Kyledion and welcome back to another installment of what I'm reading, or another installment, I should say, a, a new series of what I'm reading. This is a series I started back on my channel way back when I, first started it, and it's always something I've been meaning to come back to and revisit, but for whatever reason I just haven't had the time and haven't got around to it, but the plan is, for now, I'm going to start trying to do more of these kind of what I'm reading videos and give you guys a little bit of insight into some of the comics I'm reading. So today I'm going to be discussing Old Man Logan. Or should I specify Wolverine Old Man Logan, not the new Old Man Logan series Marvel's doing right now, which I have a bit of a rant about, but I'm not going to talk about that. So anyhow, I'm mainly reading Old Man Logan because of Logan, the new hit film coming out soon, or by the time this video will be out, it'll probably already be out. So this is a story arc I'd heard recommended a lot prior to reading it, a lot, and for whatever reason I just had never got around to reading it. But finally, I've got around to reading it, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it here today. And I just want to start off by saying that I really love this. This was so great. Just this I don't want to say universe necessarily because the universe was already created, but what Mark Miller did with the Marvel universe and how he made this somewhat post-apocalyptic, dark, just gritty future, just something about it was just so impressive, and it was great. It was amazing. And but anyhow, yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So the first thing I'm going to start with is, I guess, kind of like a recap of the events that happened in the story itself. And this is the entirety of Old Man Logan, by the way. If you're wondering, not like a certain number of issues, it's just the entirety of it. I believe it's a 7-8 issue series, something around there, so it's going to encompass all of it. Oh, and there will be spoilers in this video, by the way, so if you don't want it spoiled, I suggest you leave before I get into it. But anyhow, the main story of Old Man Logan revolves around Wolverine, Logan, James Howlett, whatever you want to call him, who has to go on a road trip alongside Hawkeye, an old blind Hawkeye, and Wolverine is old as well, who has to go on a road trip with Hawkeye to end up getting this money to pay his rent, essentially. A little bit of prelude, a little bit of backstory about the whole rent thing. So this in particular story takes place 50 years after this grand war between, well, not necessarily war, but this great battle between all of the Marvel Universe's superheroes and all the Marvel Universe's supervillains, and essentially what the supervillains did. And really, this is one of the things I really got to give Mark Miller credit for when he was writing this, because it's something I've been saying for years, and they really sum it up really well in this one panel in the comic. But anyhow, essentially they're all like, how many supervillains are there to every superhero? 20? 30? And it makes sense. It really does, because a lot of superheroes have these really big, extensive rogues galleries, and if you look at the percentage of villain to hero, the villain percentage is a lot higher. So essentially, what all the supervillains did is they got together. They joined forces and used their combined intellects and talents, and essentially took out all the superheroes. So, like Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Spider-Man, all these superheroes in the Marvel Universe have been killed by the supervillains, and the supervillains have, essentially completed their goal and taken over the world, or at least the United States. And the United States is split up into these very Mad Max-esque territories where the Hulk, well, previously the Abomination, but then the Hulk, who is now turned into, like this evil kind of redneck, I don't know, patriarch of this redneck family of Hulk cannibals. It's really great. I'll get into that. Now owns the entirety of California, and the new Kingpin owns around the Vegas area, and Doctor Doom owns the Bible Belt, and Red Skull is the president, and he owns Washington D.C. and everything on the East Coast. And it's just such an interesting, cool concept that these supervillains, control the United States and control this world. It's really interesting. But essentially, they're living underneath this rule. And Wolverine, due to some events during said supervillain takeover that I'll discuss later, has now turned to a life of pacifism and has settled down and is raising a farm and a family in the Hulk's territory in California. And, everything's going pretty good for him. He's got a wife, he's got some kids, things are nice, he's really settled down and is enjoying his pacifist life. But, the unfortunate thing is, times are hard for our main protagonist, Logan. He doesn't have his rent money. He doesn't end up having his rent money. And, the Hulk's grandchildren, who call themselves the Hulks, the Banners, end up coming to him for their rent money, and he doesn't have it. And there's this really great moment when they come where they're expecting their rent money, they're interrogating him and stuff, and you can tell Logan's just holding back all his rage, and he's just waiting for anyone to pop those claws and cut him open. And there's this great moment where he visualizes that he's like gutting one of the Hulks with his claws. But then it cuts back to reality, and he's just... And anyhow, Logan has such a devotion to his family that when these Hulks get in his face and start intimidating, he doesn't lose his cool, he doesn't lose his temper, and he lets them just wail on him. And when I say wail on him, I mean they, by all means, kill him, but due to Wolverine's healing factor, he heals right up from it. But, they pummel him into the ground. They pummel him drastically, and just... Oh, it was such a great moment, just to show you that Wolverine's not joking around when he says he's devoted to a life of pacifism. Because the Wolverine we know and love would gut those Hulks in a minute, but not this one. So it was a really good way to set up and prove that, like, he means business. He is no longer this person he once was. And, anyhow, so, the stress comes over of how are we going to get the rent in order to pay these Hulks, because the Hulks, if they return, they intend on killing his family, and obviously he doesn't want that. So this big concern comes about the rents. But fortunately, an old buddy of Logan shows up in the form of Hawkeye, who's now an older, blind Hawkeye. Excuse me. So anyhow, this older blind Hawkeye ends up telling Logan he's got this pretty good deal. He's got a way they can make quite a bit of money, but involves him traveling cross-country. It involves him traveling to New Babylon, which is essentially Washington, D.C., where the Red Skull is held up and is the president. So, essentially, Wolverine and Hawkeye have to go on this road trip cross-country to get to New Babylon. And by the way, I just want to point something out before we move any further. I was thinking, how is Hawkeye still alive? Or how are a lot of these characters that are still alive supposedly still alive? Because Wolverine's aging is not like the typical human's aging. Wolverine has been alive since the 1800s. And I just find it weird that, like, because by the time Wolverine would be an old man, or at least as we see him in the the story here, all the other people that age like normal human beings would be dead. So I think that's a bit weird, and it's not really explained that well either. They explain that his healing factor is weakened for whatever reason, and I would assume that also maybe applies to his aging thing, but I don't know, it's really weird, and I thought that was a bit odd. But anyhow, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. So anyhow, Wolverine and Hawkeye end up going on this road trip, and it's just, I don't know, it's just so great, the concept of them going on this road trip. Really, it's just, really, the premise itself is quite simple, but the premise acts as a vessel to further explore this different, interesting take on this world, and they encounter some very interesting plot threads along the way. One of the first of, or one of the first of which is one of the first of which is actually Hawkeye's ex-wife, who is Peter Parker's daughter, which is a bit weird because if you think about it, because Peter Parker is younger than Hawkeye, quite clearly, meaning Peter Parker's daughter would be extremely young relative to Hawkeye. So Hawkeye's a lot older than that girl he married, but that's neither here or there. And anyhow, their daughter, Ashley, has ended up going into the Las Vegas area to take on the new Kingpin. And, essentially, Wolverine and Hawkeye agree to, go after her and help her out. And, can I just point out that I love the fact that, Hawkeye's ex-wife's new husband is an Ultron robot, and he's an Ultron robot in a Hawaiian shirt and cargo shorts, and that is so great. And that's the kind of stuff you get in this story that I just love. Like, there's just an Ultron robot in khakis and a Hawaiian shirt. I just find that so hilarious, and it's just, it's great. But anyhow, so they end up having to go after her and take on the new Kingpin. And also something else really interesting within that town they're in when they meet Hawkeye's ex-wife that I thought was really interesting is that the town sort of serves as a superhero memorial site, as it were. A lot of the superheroes died there, and they sell a lot of superhero merchandise and a bunch of other stuff like that. But one thing I thought was really interesting is Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, is seen, placed in the ground wherever Thor, died, and there's just these people praising it, like it's this item or idol, as it were. And I thought that was really interesting that they were praising Mjolnir as if it was this holy, significant figure, and I thought that was really interesting. But essentially, they end up having to go after Ashley, Hawkeye's not ex-wife, Hawkeye's daughter, and they find her. But big twist, what they believed she was there to do is create a new superhero team and try to become this new big superhero and liberate all the people who are underneath the Kingpin's control, which is a big deal because superheroes are more, like I said, more or less extinct in this universe, and all superheroic actions are illegal as declared by the President, Red Skull. So it's a very big deal when they attempt, or when she attempts to do this, and they have to. And it's a very big deal when when she attempts to do this, and they kind of have to coerce her out of it. But actually, in all actuality, she wasn't there to do that. She was there to take control of this new Kingpin's territory. And there's this great moment where she just whacks the new Kingpin's head off with the butt of a gun. She just uses it like a baseball bat and knocks his head off. Don't ask me how that makes sense. Don't ask me how she did it. I would assume she has super strength of some sort, her being Spider-Man's granddaughter and all. But just, it was absurd, and I loved it. So anyhow, moving on past that, after seeing that, Hawkeye is obviously like, okay, I'm out. So they move on, and this is one weak point, is I feel like they kind of set Ashley up to do more than she actually does, because she ends up sending some guys after Hawkeye and Logan, who are driving off and trying to escape. And anyhow, what ends up happening is moloids, which are great because the moloids are kind of like these zombie-esque creatures in the story, and this is really interesting the way they did the moloids. End up opening this crater in the ground that Hawkeye and Wolverine fall into, and the people chasing them as well. And the people chasing them end up getting eaten by the Molewoods and die. But it's just, I don't know. It just seems like they kind of wrapped that plot thread up really weirdly. I mean, I'm kind of glad they did, though, because I didn't want that to stretch out through the entirety of the story. But I don't know, I thought it was a bit weird. I thought it was a bit of a choppy way to wrap it up. But anyhow, after that, they just continue on along their journey and encounter many other threats. They encounter a group of biker gang of these violent bikers who call themselves the Ghost Riders and paint skulls in their face and ride flaming motorcycles in a way very similar to that of Ghost Rider, which I thought was interesting. That was actually before the events I just mentioned about the new Kingpin and everything, but still. They also go into Doctor Doom's territory and mess around in there a little bit. And actually, while they're in Doctor Doom's territory, they encounter a T-Rex, which has been imbued with the Venom symbiote, and I do not need to express how awesome that is. The fact that there is a Venom T-Rex in this is alone means you should go read it. It's so cool. And I bet you're wondering, T-Rex, that's a bit odd, but it's actually really interesting. There are a bunch of dinosaurs present in this very chaotic post-apocalyptic world, and that's because they were imports from the Savage Land, but eventually they imported so many that they couldn't keep track of them all, and now there's just dinosaurs roaming the land, which I think is hilarious. And, so a Venom dinosaur, but they're saved by the last minute when Black Bolt comes down, granted with the help of Emma Frost, and just destroys the dinosaur with one word. And they see Emma Frost, and she's running like a sanctuary for mutants, and she talks about how like most of the mutants are no longer being born, and the mutant bursts are no longer a big thing anymore, which I thought was kind of interesting. But that, yet again, another plot thread they don't really do a lot with. They make it seem like it's going to be significant, and then Wolverine and Hawkeye are just like, see ya, and they drive off. So, I thought that was a bit odd. But, anyhow, after that, they end up making their way to New Babylon, and, all the while, Wolverine is under the impression that Hawkeye, the cargo they were delivering was drugs, because Hawkeye's kind of fell into a bit of a criminal not enterprise necessarily, but a criminal life ever since the fall of all the superheroes. But in actuality, it was vials of a super soldier formula that Hawkeye believed he was giving to people who had the intent of making a new Avengers team and a new superhero team to take down the oppressive Red Skull. But in actuality, it was all a setup, and the people who he thought were trying to make the new Avengers team were actually working for Red Skull. And there's this great moment where Hawkeye's just all like, I've never, because Hawkeye ends up kind of dealing with the people and tells them he wants to be on this new Avengers team and he wants to follow the Super Soldier Serum, and they're like, yeah, okay, you can get it. And he's just all like, you don't know how great this makes me feel. It makes me feel blah, 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 blah. And then Logan's just like, bub. And then they both get gunned down. And it's a great moment in the sense for the comedic timing, but also Hawkeye's death was kind of tragic. But anyhow, so after this, we get to see a little bit of Red Skull in his trophy room, and he's looking at and the Red Skull trophy room scene is so great because he just has this case and he's got like Iron Man's armor in there and Nova's helmet and Captain America's shield, obviously, and just all these, and like Thor's helmet and all these different things, and it's just so cool that he has this trophy room with all these things in it. And anyhow, so they end up bringing the bodies of Hawkeye and Logan there because obviously Red Skull set up the whole thing so he could get the super soldier serum. And so they're talking. It's like, oh yeah, these guys are dead. But then Wolverine, healing factor, always beneficial, gets up and he just throws dudes and he starts fighting them. And then there's this great, and then him and Red Skull obviously start fighting. And anyhow, they break into as they're fighting, they break the case or whatever. And Wolverine picks up Captain America's shield, and there's this great moment where he's standing on top of Red Skull, and he's about to strike him down with the shield. And the Red Skull's all like, "You're not gonna do it. You don't have the guts." And then next panel, Wolverine just boom slams the shield down and cuts Red Skull's head off with the shield, and it was so awesome. It was so just it was great. And then after that, he adds to the ante because some soldiers, kick in. They're like, "Oh, you killed the president," and Wolverine's in an Iron Man armor, and he shoots repulsor blasts at all the guards, and then flies off. And anyhow, he uses Iron Man armor to fly all the way back home to his family because he now has the money from the exchange with the Super Soldier Serum guys and the Hawkeye. And when he gets there, it turns quite tragic in the sense that Logan's family were killed by the Hulks. The Hulks ended up growing bored and killed his family. And then this essentially just becomes like the first Mad Max, or one of those 70s revenge films, in the sense that Wolverine just starts going after those Hulks, and he's just chopping their heads off and stabbing them through the face and a bunch of stuff. And can I just point out that what they did with the Hulks was really interesting. So the Hulks in this are, like I mentioned earlier, like this kind of hillbilly redneck kind of big large family, very similar to like the wrong turn, like those in Wrong Turn, like mutated big redneck family of essentially green giant Hulks, with Bruce Banner being the main patriarch grandfather of the family. And I just think that's so interesting. And what they talk about is Bruce Banner actually ended up getting it on with his cousin She-Hulk, and that's the reason they're kind of inbred Hulks running around, is because he got it on with his cousin She-Hulk, and his justification being she's the only one that could take it, because his being the Hulk. So it's really interesting, and I think that's a really cool thing to do with it. I always kind of like it when the Hulk's painted as a villain, and I feel like this did it pretty well, although a lot of the things Bruce Banner do seem kind of out of character. Like, Bruce Banner isn't a hillbilly redneck. Like, I feel like he shouldn't talk like I understand his offspring talking that way, but him talking like, what I'm talking about, like, it just doesn't really work for his character. I don't know. But anyhow, I'll get more into that later. But anyhow, Wolverine ends up going after all these Hulks, and actually, he finally takes on the patriarch himself. He takes on Bruce Banner. He takes on the Hulk, who's now an old man, and much like him. And there's a very confusing part that I was not a big fan of during this fight, in the sense that, Wolverine, after murdering, like, the entirety of the Hulk's family, essentially, he comes up to, Bruce Banner, and Bruce Banner, starts fighting back, and in Bruce Banner form, he punches Wolverine, and sends him flying, and it's just, Bruce Banner doesn't have super strength. I thought that was really weird, that Bruce Banner had that much strength in just his normal human form and not in his Hulk form. I thought that was a little bit odd, but I'm not gonna question it too much because, why not? So, but anyhow, he ends up doing that, and by all intents and purposes, Wolverine loses the fight. Hulk beats Wolverine and actually eats him, just eats Wolverine whole. But then there's this great moment where, one of the Hulk's grandchildren comes back up, and he's talking to him. He's all like, "Hey, Pappy Banner, yeah, everyone's dead," or whatever. And he's all like, "Yeah," and he's all like, "Yeah, Wolverine came, but don't worry, I took care of him." And, I ate him or whatever. And then he's all like, "Wait, you ate him? What about his healing factor?" And then Wolverine just slices his way out of the Hulk, and it's so cool looking, and it's just, and there's green blood flying everywhere, and it's so cool when Wolverine slices his way out of the Hulk. and then he ends up killing the last remaining grandchild that I was talking about. But there's one grandchild left, and that's Bruce Jr., who's just a wee babe. And Wolverine kind of makes it seem as if, like, I killed everybody else, why shouldn't I kill him too? And you think, like, oh my god, did Wolverine just kill a baby? But no, at the end you see Wolverine bury his family, and he puts some trinkets, all around their graves, and it's really somber and it's really sad. And you eventually see him ride off into the sunset with baby Bruce Banner on his back, and he says he's going to start a new superhero team, and he's going to try to take down the oppressive leaders that are ruling the country at this time. And it ends on that, and it was really good. So that that was just a brief rundown of everything that happened, but man, was this good. Like, just there's so many great things, like the fact that there's pinballs and it's just giant man's skeleton, this rotted skeleton laying on a road, and it's like became like a landmark. Or the fact that like Loki's skeleton is crushed underneath a building, or the fact that the Hulk gang has the Fantastic Car, that they ride around in the Fantastic Car from place to place. And just, there's so many interesting things that Mark Miller does with the different, like, Marvel, thing. Like, he ties in so many different Marvel-related things together, but puts them, with this weird Mad Maxy post-apocalyptic feel, and there's just something so cool about it. Like the fact that there's just a kid who somehow got control of Hank Pym's Ant-Man helmet, and like makes people pay a toll in order to cross his bridge, and if they don't, he commands ants to devour them to death. There's just something so interesting about the way he does all this different stuff. And obviously I mentioned Red Skull's like trophy room, and just the fact that he has all those different superheroes items and costumes, it just as trophies. And it's a really amazing way of kind of taking the whole Marvel universe as we know it and putting a kind of post-apocalyptic feel on it. It reminds me a lot of Flashpoint in that way, in the sense that it's kind of like the same universe, but it's different and everything's going wrong. It's not exactly Flashpoint, but it reminds me a little bit of Flashpoint. But it was really interesting. A lot of the things they did was really good. It was essentially just like, I don't know, there's just something about it that's so great. And just the fact that, like, the spider buggy is what they're rolling around in, like the spider buggy that Spider-Man has, that Johnny Storm invented for him, it's just, I don't know, it's so great. Just, it feels like almost as if they took out all their Marvel toys and just, threw them in the sandbox and just started playing with them. And it's all like, oh, now there's a Venom dinosaur, oh, now there's Black Bolt, and it's, I don't know, it was just so cool. And the way they incorporated so many different aspects of the Marvel Universe into this story was really impressive to me as well. Because I was under the impression that this was mainly an X-Men story, because after all, it is Wolverine and it is Old Man Logan. And in all honesty, I was very pleasantly surprised by this, because I had heard all sorts of things about, oh, Old Man Logan, oh, you gotta read it, oh, it's so great. And, in all honesty, I didn't imagine it would live up to the reputation, but it does. It holds up to the reputation so well. Also, there's a bit I forgot to mention, and I'm glad I remembered it. So, Wolverine's reason for his pacifism, and I also need to clarify that his pacifism includes never popping his claws. He has not released his claws in over 50 years, and this in particular thing is because the night all the supervillains ended up, defeating all the superheroes, Mysterio ended up tricking Wolverine into slaughtering every one of the X-Men. And it's great because just the way it's set up in the comic, because, I mean, you're kind of right there along with Wolverine, because you see Wolverine, like, stabbing, like, Scorpion and Green Goblin and, like, Silver Samurai and Sabretooth and stuff, and you think he's just, killing these supervillains and it's whatever, and then it just flips the switch on you, and you see just all the X-Men, like Cyclops, Storm, Jubilee just all sliced to bits and dead, and it's just the way they flip the switch on you, like, you're right there with Wolverine. You feel the same emotion as he does, the same surprise and shock, and just, that was so great. I loved that in particular bit so much. But yeah, really, in all honesty, this is very much a Marvel Universe story rather than just a Wolverine story, and I really like that aspect of it, that it encompasses a lot of the elements of the Marvel Universe, because there's X-Men stuff, there's Spider-Man stuff, there's Avengers stuff, there's Captain America, Iron Man, Fantastic Four, Hulk, whatever, and I just like the fact that it has all of this stuff kind of encompassed into one. It's very good. What can I say? It makes me quite sad that, well, not quite sad, but it would be interesting to see a live-action version of this. Now, I know we're never going to get that. We're never going to get, like, you know, Hugh Jackman and Jeremy Renner together, or, like, yeah, or anything like that, but it's an interesting thing to think about. I know it's never going to happen, but it'd be interesting. But all in all, Old Man Logan was very impressive. The artwork was amazing. Steve McNiven, I believe is the name. He did amazing artwork on it. He's also worked on some other things like New Adventures, and he did the Kick-Ass comics and stuff as well. So he's a very, you know, experienced artist, and obviously Mark Miller's a very experienced writer. I mean, he's wrote countless things, Kick-Ass and stuff included. So it was, you know, all in all, it was just very impressive, and I was very pleased with what I ended up getting. It certainly lives up to its reputation, and I'd say it's one of the best Wolverine stories I've read in probably ever, and it's one of the best stories in general I've read in quite a long time. So all in all, Old Man Logan, I would certainly recommend it to anybody out there that's wanting to read it. A little bit of a previous knowledge of the Marvel Universe as a whole would probably be recommended, I would suggest. I wouldn't, like, if you're a first-time comic reader, I certainly wouldn't recommend this. But if you know a little bit about, you know, the Marvel Universe as a whole, I'd certainly recommend you read it. And if you're a fan of just guttural violence and just Wolverine gore, then I certainly would recommend it. But all in all, very good. I enjoyed it. But anyhow, thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.